Hey there, welcome to the Get Out of Debt Guy show. I'm Steve Rhode, the original Get Out of Debt Guy, and as always, I'm joined by the new Get Out of Debt Guy, Damon Day. Say hello, Damon.
Hello, Damon.
That's just proof of life.
It is.
Today we're talking to every parent who's been watching their kids grow up, working hard, and getting ready to take that next step towards college. You've been making plans, maybe even penciled in some numbers, but here's the thing. Those plans about sending your kid to college just hit a curveball because Congress just made major changes to the Parent Plus loan program for student loans. And if you're not paying attention, those changes might wreck everything you thought you had lined up. And the dates are not that far off. We're talking about deadlines that are already on the calendar and won't wait for you to catch up. Starting July 1st, 2026, new Parent Plus loans, as we know them, poof, disappear. And if you already have one and want to access income-driven repayment or public service loan forgiveness, you got until June 30th, 2026 to consolidate and enroll before you lose those options forever. Damon, I don't think this is a drill. This is a ticking time bomb. So in this episode, let's talk about what's changing and exactly when and what people need to do before the door slams shut and how to avoid common mistakes and why this affects not just parents, but anyone who's already in a Parent Plus loan. All right, let's break it down in plain English. I have my plain English 7 pages
Right.
of details in front of me because none of this stuff is ever easy.
Well, speaking of details, we actually don't even yet know all the details yet. We just know the kind of the building blocks, and we'll just have to take it from there.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is that this hand grenade has been thrown into Parent Plus loans, and we're not really going to know until November 2025 what the rules actually are. Now, we can look at what was just passed in the big, beautiful reconciliation bill, because that's where this got tucked in.
Yeah.
And, hopefully we can read some tea leaves, but you and I have been doing this long enough, and we've seen so many changes that, if you're making decisions about spending $100,000 on college, you would at least like some certainty,
Well,
but you don't get it.
Well, you kind of do if you approach college without even thinking about getting in bed with the government.
That's right. I mean, if you don't take out federal student loans, you got things to deal with.
Well, you can still take out federal student loans, but do it with the intention and the understanding of what the normal repayment back, because people forget about this. Federal student loans can still be repaid as if it was a regular loan.
Yeah,
You
a
can
10-year
still say,
repayment.
Yeah. Well, they even have, 20 and 25 if you really need that. But, that's the problem as people have gotten to the point where they view federal loans, not everybody, a lot of them almost as like charity. Oh, well, I'm just going to get federal loans and then they'll just get forgiven later.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem is they don't really they don't ever do a proper cost benefit analysis on, well, little Jimmy really wants to go to Duke.
Right.
Okay, well, maybe little Jimmy needs to make sure he can get some scholarships to go to Duke unless you can afford it, because you don't want to have Duke student loans after that. And
No.
so you don't have to get in bed with the government to go to college, but you do have to do a better cost benefit analysis, especially these days, whether you're going to borrow money or not, to figure out, what does my child want to do? What do they have the aptitude to do? What are they likely to do? What are they likely to
Is it
make?
gonna
And
pay
how
off?
much? And how much is this going to cost the family, to do it? And is it a good investment? Don't go into it thinking, what am I going to get forgiven? If you're already thinking that, it's not a good investment.
Now, my impression is that, and I want to hear yours too. My impression over the years has been parents have fallen into Parent Plus loans because there was never really enough planning ahead of time. And then all of a sudden they realized, oh crap, we don't have enough money to send Johnny to school. And so they took out what they thought were easy to sign for Parent Plus loans, never really considering what the consequences were. So, Damon, what is your impression about how people looked at Parent Plus loans?
Well, I agree 100% with you. It was just kind of a panic last minute. Oh, we don't have enough money to do this. Oh, let's get these loans. And remember, and maybe I'm misremembering because, the mind can play funny tricks. But if I remember, and I could be wrong, but I swear back in the day, people like Dave Ramsey and a lot of these finance gurus all called student loan debt good debt. If I
Well,
remember,
that's true. They
I
did.
could be
Yeah, they
wrong
did.
because I know they don't. I know they don't do it anymore.
Well,
Uh,
no, I mean, there's still a percentage of people that do because they use the excuse that it increases your skill and your earning potential, but they forget about all the people that never finish.
yeah. And the people that take underwater basket weaving and
Yeah.
and graduate with that. You know what I think should happen? I think this should be like, when you file bankruptcy, you're required to take that stupid little course that doesn't teach you anything, but supposedly is going to, make you be a better borrower in the future,
Yeah.
right?
Uh-huh.
I think before you take out student loans, they should have like a similar requirement, kind of like, remember like the Scared Straight series, like for alcoholics and things like that. They should have
Yep.
a Scared Straight for all the, poor incoming, graduating high school seniors. They get them in a room with their parents and they make them watch like this just grotesque video, like a driving school. And the video is just parents, grandparents, students, and about the horror stories of student loans and what it's done to their life and how they're trying to retire or are retired and are still dealing with federal loans and what that experience was and what they could do if they could go back in time. What would they choose? I think that should be required watching for every person before they take out a student loan. Not to say don't ever take out a student loan, but just to say, maybe I should pause and let's think about this a little bit. Don't just automatically, oh, got to go to college, got to get a student loan.
Well, I think that they should assign a max loan cap for each degree. Like,
It's almost,
oh, you want
it's all,
you want to get a degree in dance? Your cap's 25 grand.
well, they used to quasi have that before the government got involved because a private lender, even if they didn't publish what the cap was, I guarantee you they had a cap when someone said,
Mhm.
I want to be a history major. You didn't get no private bank that wasn't going to have that loan backed by the government go, you want to be a history major? I got 200,000 for you. Here you go, Johnny.
Well, here's one of the changes that's coming up is that for any loan dispersed on or after the 1st of July 2026, the lifetime cap for Parent Plus loans is forecast to be only $50,000. So if you failed to plan and now your lifetime cap for that student is going to be 50 grand, and that might not be enough to send people to school anymore.
Well, it will because supply and demand, the more you restrict the access to money, the more tuition will come down. That's another,
Well,
we're not going to get into that on this call. But here's the thing. It might not
mhm,
seem even like a lot of money, but I have clients that borrowed $50,000 30 years ago
mhm.
and owe a hell of a lot more than that now.
Well, yeah, and right now the cost of college for tuition and board and food for 1 year, the average cost is 35 grand.
It's ridiculous.
All right, let's talk about repayment plans.
Yeah, because this is
So,
where anybody with Parent Plus loans right now, there's some big stuff happening right now. Some good, some bad, some we don't know.
yeah, if you have a Parent Plus loan you're on the hook for right now, before June 30th, 2026, you must consolidate and elect an income dependent repayment program to be grandfathered in. Otherwise, you're not going to have favorable terms to repay it other than the basic terms, right?
Well, yeah. And as everybody with the Parent Plus loans now, everybody with a Parent Plus loan now knows they don't have favorable terms anyway because
Hmm.
Parent Plus loans never were able to take advantage of the newer, lower cost programs, lower payment programs as they came out. They were always kind of stuck on ICR.
Yeah.
And the partial good news here is they they may no longer be stuck on ICR but we don't know for sure. We do know that your loans need to be sure to be consolidated into direct loans, and they need to be on an active income driven repayment, which right now would have to be ICR. That's the only plan the Parent Plus loans can be on. But the problem with the ICR, especially if for clients that are or consumers that are retired, this is unfortunate that people were about paying off their mortgage before they retired. Now they're retiring and they still have mortgage payments and student loan payments for their kids.
Right.
But you have to be enrolled on the ICR. Now I don't know if until the rules come out, I won't know if maybe enrolled means, okay, you're enrolled, but we can then get on a forbearance, but you're still technically enrolled, or if you have to be enrolled and actively making payments as that June deadline rolls over. I don't know yet.
Well, here's what we do know about consolidation is still the only doorway for a Parent Plus loan to enter an income-driven plan. Now, today that's ICR, and then after 2026, it'll be IDR. So to consolidate a Parent Plus loan, Damon, what are the requirements?
There's no real requirements. You just have to have more than one loan. You don't even
Yep.
have to have more than one loan. You can do it with one loan by itself, and you just have to request consolidation and consolidate it. I mean, it's really that simple to consolidate it. You just go online and do it, or you can do it manually, but most people don't do it manually anymore.
Yeah. Paper forms?
Paper forms, yeah. You could like get the dot matrix out, have it start spitting reams.
How 2020?
Yeah. Yeah, but no, if you have an old parent, like a Parent Plus loan that's never been consolidated, you just need to request a consolidation. If you've got multiple Parent Plus loans, you can consolidate them all into one. If you just have one Parent Plus loan, you can consolidate it into itself and just it'll convert automatically into a direct loan when you consolidate it.
All right. And then one of the bigger things is this whole public service loan forgiveness program. The benefits with Parent Plus loans go away. So right now it's interesting. You can take out a Parent Plus loan if you are a parent, an adoptive parent, or a step parent. So if you have taken out a Parent Plus loan and you also work in one of the loan forgiveness categories under public service loan forgiveness, your Parent Plus loan may be eliminated. However, in 2026, that all goes away.
Now, and do we know for sure? Steve's read more of the details than I have. I don't think we know this yet, but correct me if I'm wrong. Do we know if that's all Parent Plus loans after that point, or only Parent
Yeah, it's
Plus
after that
loans
point.
so only Parent Plus loans taken out after that point?
Yes,
But for people with current Parent Plus loans now that are on a PSLF track and
they're
have
okay.
all
They're
the
grandfathered
qualifications.
in.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm already when this stuff started coming out a couple days ago, I started getting calls from clients and oh my God, Parent Plus loans, the repayment plan's going away. I'm not gonna be able to afford it. I'm on Social Security. And it's like, wait, hold on. The payment plan options aren't going away
Right.
unless, and they're very specific, that you don't have the loan consolidated and be on an ICR payment plan by June of next year.
Well, I think this summarized it all. Parent Plus borrowers have one simple but immovable checkpoint. If they don't do something by June 30th, 2026, like consolidate and enroll in ICR, they will then permanently forfeit income-driven repayment and PSLF. So that date is the most important.
Yeah, and also too, another potential issue, because I have some clients where the strategy has literally been try to put off repayment until the client is retired,
Right.
because
I get it.
the current ICR has a very large repayment component compared to the new IBR or the short-lived save program
Yeah.
that burst onto the scene and then
That
got
flew
kicked
by.
out as soon as it settled in. But the payment is so high, there's a lot of clients that we're looking at going like, hey, we can extend this and get forbearance and through a series of consolidations and kind of push out the repayment until they are retired. And then the repayment based on a percentage of their income would obviously be a much smaller repayment, especially if they're going for, forgiveness. And there's some things we have to talk about too. But the big point there is that strategy is going to be hugely handicapped now because
Yeah.
they are now saying that they're going to cap loans with 12 months of lifetime forbearance, which is significantly less
Yeah.
than
That's
they had
bad
before.
news.
Before, we used to get 3 years, and then anytime you would consolidate a loan, you would get another 3 years of voluntary, and then have 2 additional years of what they call, a debt burden forbearance, or basically if your required payment was more than 20% of your income, you could get another 2 years. So for a lot of my clients, especially with high debt loads, I was able to kind of get them 5 years of forbearance, then do a consolidation, get another 5 years, and then if depending on how many loans they started out with, I was consolidating just 2 loans at a time until I have some clients where we were on a strategy where we're like in our 12th or 15th year of consolidations and forbearances, and they're now about ready to retire. It kind of worked. But now
Yeah.
moving forward, that strategy is not going to work because the government is taking away this ability to say, we're not going to give you loophole, if you will, to gain 15 years of no payments and then wait till you're on Social Security and then have your repayment be significantly less. So they're essentially not paying that.
And another interesting part of this bill is the advice about make sure you download all your payment histories because the old student loan servicing systems are planned to be eliminated by July of 2028. And whenever data is migrated, problems can occur. So if you want to keep a record for yourself, download it, print it, save it, whatever. Do it now.
Well, and the other big shockaroonie in this bill,
Yeah.
and again, we don't know the details until it all comes out, but
Yeah.
right now they're talking about, if I read it right, Steve, which I believe I did, they were talking about capping even if you're grandfathered in and your loan is eligible for, ICR forgiveness, because a lot of people think of forgiveness, they think of PSLF, right?
Yeah.
Well, a lot of people that don't qualify for that are going for IBR and ICR forgiveness, which is make payments for anywhere from 20 to 25 years
Right. Then
based
hope
on
it
your
gets
income,
forgiven.
and then get forgiveness. But now they're talking about capping that forgiveness.
Yeah.
Is that correct, or is that only with PSLF?
No, I think it's only PSLF.
So only PSLF is getting capped. So, okay, so if you're on PSLF, Steve, what did it say that was potentially going to be capped at? 30,000?
I don't know.
I believe it was 30,000.
Okay.
So that would need to be factored in too. If someone says, "Oh, well, I'm going to be, a public service employee.
Right. That's
I'm
not
going
a
to
game plan.
Yeah, where I'm going to go in and I want to get my law degree and I'm going to borrow all this money and then I'm going to be a public defender and then I'll just make payments for 10 years and get my loans forgiven." And then you rack up $250,000 in loans and think it's okay, I want to be a public defender.
Yeah.
Well,
They'll
then they
get
pass
forgiven.
this and all of a sudden they're capping that at $30,000. Well, who cares at that point? I mean, if you take out 250 grand and make income-based payments, which is almost nothing if you're a public defender, then that loan is going to grow and grow and grow. 10 years later, they forgive 30 grand, which is less than the interest that you accumulated in those 10 years. So you still owe all the money if this ends up passing. So
Yeah. I think the big thing about PSLF is it's another one of those details that we really need to wait until November, until the final rules are out. But I would suspect that the current administration effort is going to be to restrict it as much as possible because when the current administration was in office before, they tried to throw every roadblock in place to not allow people to forgive it.
well, and here's the thing too. All the stuff that we're talking about could be flipped on its head in a couple of years.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And
It will be.
and this goes back to what Steve said at the very beginning. Don't You cannot plan for college assuming you can get your loans forgiven. You have to plan for college. And this goes back to see what you talked about earlier, which is the overarching theme of all of these changes from this administration is they want to shift from the mindset of, oh, don't worry, it will get forgiven, to you better make some smarter choices because you're going to have to, a lot of the onus of the repayment is going to be on you if you take out the loan. There's still some safety net there, but not as willy-nilly of a
Yeah.
safety net as was before.
Yeah. Another problem is because there are going to be caps on the amount that you can take out, If you're not doing some prior planning and thinking about where the other loans are coming from or scholarships or how is Johnny going to pay for college, I can see parents getting in a situation where they can't borrow enough money to get the kid through school. And
Yeah,
so now you're in the worst spot. You got the debt and no degree.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I think there's going to be a major reset, especially for kids that are going to be graduate. I've got kids this age right now. In fact, my wife is next door here enrolling my oldest son, in college. He's going to go to a local junior college. The discussion of loans never even came up. Not because
That's
I'm
right.
just
It's
Mr.
affordable.
Moneybags or anything, but yeah, it's like, how much is that? It's like, oh, okay, yeah, we'll just pay for it. But so he's going to do that for 2 years, and he doesn't know what he wants to do yet. It would make absolutely no sense to have him go to a college
Yeah.
that's 20, 30, $40,000 a year plus whatever other costs
Yeah.
when he doesn't even really know. We've talked about, discussed, and settled on a different degree for him 3 different times in the last 2 months. That's
Yeah.
how quickly his mind, and so he's not gonna know, but the longer now go to college, go to junior college, something might click for him there. He might, "Oh, I had this class, or I had this class, or I talked to this person, or I had this conversation with this professor," and now maybe he's, 21 or whatever. It's like, I really know what I wanna do. I really wanna do this." And maybe he starts doing that and gets an internship or whatever, and it's like, "Oh, okay, this is his career path. This is where he's going. This is what he wants to do." Now we have something we can get some numbers on, right?
Right.
Let's analyze this. So, what's his best opportunity to succeed in this thing that he's now figured out that he wants to do? Does he need to go to college? Not need to go? What kind of degree does he need? I've got a finance degree, and I, you know, I've never really had to use it because I've been working for myself since college. But
Mhm.
a lot of it is just like, oh, you got a degree, great, that's a requirement. But you ever fill out a job application? I'm not saying school doesn't
Well,
that
it doesn't
school
matter
doesn't
as much
matter.
anymore, that's for
I
sure.
I know, but you fill that out, and it's not like they go, "Well, you have to go to Yale, Princeton, or Harvard. Anything else, and you don't get." We're not talking about a prestigious law firm that's got something up their butts or something like that. But
Mhm.
for 98% of the students out there, they got a bachelor's degree. They got a bachelor's degree. It doesn't really freaking matter what school they got the bachelor's degree at, because all it is an entryway into putting your application in. You still
Yeah,
got to go win the job.
it's just a filter, a box to tick. Now,
Yeah.
interestingly enough, the current trend has been more towards hiring people with skills and not necessarily degrees.
What's
But
those?
yeah, but 15, 20 years ago, the advice was for people to get into computer science, IT, computer programming. You're going to be making a fortune. And those students did really, really well. However, AI is changing so fast right now that if your kid is a senior in high school and they went and got a computer science degree,
Oh gosh.
most of them are going to be unemployable by the time they graduate. Just yesterday, I was talking to my son in law who has a software company, and he was telling me about how amazing AI is in writing computer code. And he showed me, and in less than 25 minutes, he wrote, tested, and rolled out a new program to accomplish a very specific task
Yeah.
using AI. And it blew my mind.
Yeah. Well, it's because, 20, 30 years ago, we had a need and a shortage of people that, computers were emerging, coming
Mhm.
out. It was this new technology, and we had more factory type workers and plumbers and electricians than we had people that understood this new technology.
Mhm.
Well, now that's shifting again. Now everybody followed that advice and everybody got into computers and all this and everything. And nobody really does much with their hands anymore. Now we need people like that. It's just follow where the demand. You gotta look at where is the demand going to be. What skills, what services are going to be in demand in the next 20 to 30 years, and focus on that.
Yeah, if you're in anything that is analytically based or even creatively based, you're gonna be in trouble.
Yeah, because a company can get it Sometimes better,
Yeah.
faster,
Well,
for sure, faster and cheaper for sure. Better, that's subjective. If you're the artist that's losing your job, you will never concede that it's better.
yeah, no, absolutely not. But Ford
And
Motor Company just said that in the next 10 years, they expect to reduce their white collar jobs by 50%.
yeah, and it might not need to be better. It might just need to be good enough, right?
Right.
Because it's cheaper and faster.
All right, Damon, I think we pretty much covered Parent Plus loan changes. And the two things I would like to leave people with are number one, there are changes coming. So you should think about it. And if you have any concerns or questions, Damon's always out there. Damon Day, DAMONDAY.com. You can always talk things through. And the second thing is June 2026 is coming fast, especially when you haven't done any planning about student loans. So don't bury your head in the sand.
Yeah, it is coming fast. You have a year. If you have Parent Plus loans, just pay attention because there will be options that we have to consider and look at, but we don't know the specifics just yet. We're going to need a couple more months to see it. So don't rush in to go, what do I got to do? And just go get it done. You
Yeah.
got to see how this is going to play out
Yeah. Take a beat.
when the actual specifics come down. But just have it on your radar that if you have Parent Plus loans, you may need to do something. You may already have it done. If those loans are already been consolidated and you're already on an income-driven plan, which would be the ICR, then you're probably fine. But have a heads up. There's some major changes. We'll need to look at that.
Yep.
Cross your T's and dot your I's by March of 2026, just to make sure you're good. Make sure one final check in March or something.
By that time, the final rules will be out. I would say that this podcast is, the skies are looking really dark, and I want you to get prepared. When the final rules come out in November, I'm sure it's going to be, the sky's falling. But you still have 7 months at that point.
Red sky at night, sailor's delight, something like that.
Red sky in morning, sailor take warning. All right, Damon, I will see you.
Peace.